The Terran exploration vessel Starward Bound had been drifting through the empty darkness of space for nearly 3 months. Its mission was simple: map new star systems and look for signs of life beyond the borders of human territory. Captain Lisa Monroe had commanded this ship for 5 years, and in all that time, she had never found anything more exciting than a few rocky planets and some interesting asteroid formations that changed on a quiet. Tuesday morning, Lisa was sitting in her command chair, drinking her 3rd cup of coffee and reading through the night shift reports when her sensor officer suddenly sat up straight. "Captain, I'm picking up something strange," said Danny Cole, his fingers moving quickly across his console. "Multiple contacts, bearing 047. They just appeared out of nowhere." Lisa set down her coffee and walked over to his station. The holographic display showed a cluster of red dots, and the number kept growing. 20, 50, 100. 200? What the hell? Danny whispered. "Get me a visual," Lisa ordered. The main view screen flickered, and then they saw them. Ships. Hundreds of ships. They were massive vessels, each one at least 10 times the size of the Starward Bound. Their hulls were dark purple, covered in strange symbols that glowed with an eerie blue light. They moved in perfect formation, like a school of predatory fish. Lisa felt her heart beat faster, but she kept her face calm. She had trained for this moment her entire career. First contact with an alien species. Every space captain dreamed of it, but few ever thought it would actually happen. "They're hailing us," Danny said, his voice shaking slightly. "Put it through." The view screen changed again, and Lisa found herself looking at something that was definitely not human. The creature was tall and reptilian, with scales that shifted between gold and deep crimson. Its eyes were yellow with vertical pupils, and when it opened its mouth to speak, she could see rows of sharp teeth. "Unknown vessel," the alien said. The universal translation matrix worked quickly, turning its hissing speech into clear English. "You have entered sovereign territory of the Vorath Dominion, ruling body of the Galactic Empire. Surrender your ship for inspection or be destroyed. You have 1 cycle to comply." The bridge went silent. Lisa could feel the eyes of her entire crew on her, waiting to see what she would do. Behind her, she heard someone whisper a prayer. Lisa picked up her coffee mug and took a long, slow sip. "Danny," she said casually, "how many of our ships are within jump distance?" Danny checked his console, his hands trembling. 14, ma'am. The 3rd Frontier Fleet is conducting training exercises about 6 light hours out." "Good." Lisa turned back to face the alien on the screen. She smiled. "Vorath, Dominion. This is Captain Lisa Monroe of the Terran Confederacy. We appreciate the warm welcome. However, we don't surrender. We do, however, accept invitations to talk. Would you prefer to come aboard, or should we meet somewhere neutral?" The reptilian commander stared at her. His eyes narrowed, and his scales seemed to shift to a darker shade. In the background, Lisa could see other aliens exchanging confused glances. "You are not afraid?" the commander asked. "Should we be?" The alien leaned closer to his screen, studying her like a scientist examining a strange new insect. "You are alone. 1 small ship against 200 warships. Your weapons are primitive. Your shields are weak. I could destroy you with a single command." Lisa nodded. "You could try?" Navigation Officer Pete Harris let out a small laugh, quickly covering it with a cough. The alien commander's eyes snapped to him, then back to Lisa. "You find this amusing?" "I find it interesting," Lisa replied. "You see, where I come from, we have a saying. It's not the size of the dog in the fight. It's the size of the fight in the dog. I do not understand this phrase." "You will." Lisa gestured to Danny. "Mute the channel for a moment." Danny pressed a button, and the alien's image froze on screen. Lisa turned to face her crew. They were young, most of them on their first deep space assignment. She could see fear in their eyes, but she could also see something else. Trust. They trusted her to get them through this. "Listen up," she said, her voice calm but firm. "I know this looks bad. I know we're outgunned and outmanned. But I want you to remember something. We're humans. Our ancestors survived ice ages with nothing but sharp sticks. They crossed oceans in wooden boats. They walked on the moon when computers were the size of buildings. We don't quit. We don't surrender. And we sure as hell don't run. She paused, looking at each of them in turn. These aliens think they know what we are. They think we're soft, weak, easy prey. They have no idea what humanity is capable of. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to talk to them. We're going to learn everything we can about them. And we're going to show them exactly why threatening a human is a very bad idea. Pete raised his hand. And if they attack anyway? Lisa smiled, and there was something almost dangerous in her expression. Then we make them regret it. She turned back to the screen and nodded to Danny. The channel reopened. And the alien commander was watching her with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. "Hi, Commander," Lisa said pleasantly. "I apologize for the delay. Now, about that meeting. I have some excellent coffee aboard this ship, and I'd love to show you around." "What do you say?" The alien was silent for a long moment. His clawed hands gripped the arms of his chair, and his tail swished behind him in what might have been agitation or thought. "Very well, human," he finally said. "I am High Commander Vareth of the Vorith Dominion. I will come to your vessel. But if this is a trap, know that my fleet will reduce your ship to atoms." "No trap," Lisa assured him. "Just good old-fashioned hospitality. We'll have a shuttle bay ready for you in 30 minutes. The channel closed, and the bridge erupted in whispered conversations. "Captain," Danny said quietly, "are you sure about this? We could try to run. If we hit maximum speed right now, we might be able to reach the fleet before they catch us." Lisa shook her head. "Running would show weakness. These aliens respect strength. If we run, they'll chase us. If we fight, they might destroy us. But if we stand firm and show them we're not afraid, that might just make them curious enough to listen." She picked up her coffee mug again and walked toward the door. "Besides," she added over her shoulder, "I've always wanted to meet an alien. Let's see what the galaxy has been hiding from us all this time." As she walked to prepare for their guest, Lisa allowed herself one small moment of genuine fear. The Starward Bound was an exploration vessel, not a warship. If things went wrong, they would all die. But she had meant what she said to her crew. Humans did not surrender. Whatever happened next, they would face it on their feet, not on their knees. The universe was about to learn what humanity was made of. "Hi, Commander." Vareth had conquered 17 species in his long career. He had watched entire civilizations burn beneath the guns of his fleet. He had accepted the surrender of kings and emperors, generals, and presidents. Never once had any of them looked at him without fear. Never once had any of them smiled, until now. His shuttle docked with the human vessel. The airlock hissed open to reveal a small, welcoming party. The human captain stood at the front, flanked by 2 officers and a small security detail. The guards carried weapons, but they held them loosely, casually. They did not point them at him. Vareth stepped aboard, towering over the humans by at least 2 feet. His own guards followed, their claws extended, their muscles tense. They were ready for an ambush. None came. "Hi, Commander," the female captain said, extending her hand. "Welcome aboard the Starward Bound. I'm Lisa Monroe." Vareth looked at her hand for a moment, not understanding the gesture. Then he remembered something from the quick intelligence briefing his analysts had prepared. Humans touched hands as a greeting, a sign of peaceful intent. Originating from a time when they needed to show they held no weapons, he took her hand carefully, mindful of his claws. Her grip was surprisingly firm. "You're smaller than I expected," he said. "I get that a lot," she replied with a smile. "Please, follow me. I'll give you a tour." As they walked through the corridors of the human ship, Barath studied everything. The technology was crude compared to Imperial standards. The ship's hull was made of simple metal alloys. Their weapon systems, from what he could see, were barely capable of damaging a Dominion cruiser's shields. By every measure, the species should have been easy to conquer, and yet something bothered him. It was the way the humans looked at him. Every crew member they passed, from the lowest maintenance worker to the senior officers, met his gaze without flinching. There was no fear in their eyes. No submission. Instead, he saw something that made his scales itch with unease. Curiosity, yes, but also a quiet confidence that seemed completely at odds with their situation. They reached the captain's ready room, small office attached to the bridge. Lisa gestured for him to sit, and he folded his large frame into a chair that was clearly too small for him. "Coffee?" she asked, holding up a pot of dark liquid. "What is coffee?" "A drink we make from roasted beans. It contains a stimulant that helps us stay alert. It's something of a cultural obsession for my species." Varath accepted a cup, more out of curiosity than anything else. The liquid was bitter and hot, but not unpleasant. He filed away this information. A species that required stimulants to stay alert. Perhaps they were not as formidable as they pretended to be. "Your species," he said, setting down the cup. "I know nothing of you. My empire spans 300 star systems. We have cataloged over 10,000 intelligent species. Yours is not among them." "We're new to space travel," Lisa admitted. "At least compared to you. We've only been exploring beyond our home system for about 200 years. 200 years. Vareth laughed, a harsh barking sound. "The Dominion has ruled for 50,000 years. You are infants. Maybe, but infants grow up." There was something in her voice that made Vareth pause. He leaned forward, his yellow eyes fixed on her face. "You have faced war before, Captain? Your people?" Lisa nodded slowly. "We've been fighting each other for as long as we've existed. Thousands of years of constant conflict. We've only recently managed to unite, and even now, peace doesn't come easy to us. You fought among yourselves? For what purpose? Land, resources, religion, pride. Sometimes for no reason at all, except that someone looked at us wrong." She stood up and walked to a display screen on the wall. "Let me show you something, High Commander. I think it will help you understand what you're dealing with." She activated the screen and images began to appear. Vareth watched in silence as the human captain showed him the history of her species. He saw armies clashing with swords and spears, blood soaking into muddy fields. He saw cities burning, their flames reaching towards smoke-filled skies. He saw trenches filled with soldiers, their faces hollow with exhaustion and fear, fighting and dying over a few feet of poisoned ground. He saw mushroom clouds rising over cities, incinerating hundreds of thousands of lives in an instant. He saw orbital platforms raining fire on planets, glass craters where metropolises had once stood. The images kept coming. War after war after war. Weapons growing more terrible with each generation. Death tolls climbing from thousands to millions to billions. And through it all, the humans kept fighting. They never stopped. No matter how terrible the cost, no matter how hopeless the odds, they refused to give up. When the display finally ended, Vareth realized his claws had dug deep grooves into the arms of his chair. "You did this," he said quietly, "to yourselves." "Yes, but why? How could any species survive such destruction?" Lisa sat back down across from him. Her eyes were serious now, all traces of humor gone. "'Cause we're survivors, High Commander. That's what humans do. We survive. Our home planet is a death world by galactic standards. Extreme temperatures, predators everywhere, diseases that could wipe out entire populations, gravity strong enough to crush weaker species, and natural disasters that reshape continents. Earthquakes, hurricanes, volcanic eruptions, floods. Our world tried to kill us every single day, and we beat it. We climbed to the top of the food chain not because we were the strongest or the fastest, but because we were the most stubborn." She leaned forward, and Vareth found himself leaning back. "We don't know how to quit," she continued. "It's not in our nature. When something threatens us, we don't run and hide. We fight, and if we lose, we get back up and fight again. We keep fighting until we win, or until there's nothing left of us. That's why we survived all those wars. That's why we're out here in space now. And that's why threatening us is a very, very bad idea." Vareth was quiet for a long moment. His mind was racing, trying to process everything he had seen and heard. In all his years of conquest, He had never encountered anything like this. Most species, when faced with superior force, chose surrender or extinction. The idea of fighting endlessly generation after generation, against impossible odds, was foreign to him. "And if my fleet attacks you now?" he asked finally. "You would fight? To the last breath, even knowing you would lose?" Lisa smiled, and it was not a pleasant smile. "High Commander, winning isn't always about destroying your enemy. Sometimes it's about making them pay such a high price for victory that they never want to fight you again. Your fleet could destroy this ship. But I promise you, before we went down, we would take as many of you with us as we could. And then our government would send more ships, and more, and more. Until one of two things happened. Either we won, or there were no humans left to fight." She picked up her coffee and took a sip. "Now, do you really want to start that kind of war? Or would you rather be friends?" Vareth stared at her. For the first time in his long life, he understood what it felt like to be afraid of something smaller than himself. He needed to report this to the Empress immediately. Admiral Torek was old, even by Vorath's standards. His scales had faded from bright crimson to a dull rust color, and his movements were slower than they once were. But his mind was still sharp, and his pride was still strong. When he received High Commander Vareth's report about the strange new species called humans, he laughed until his throat hurt, afraid of soft little creatures. He said to his officers, shaking his head in disgust, "Vorath has grown weak in his old age. These humans are nothing but clever animals. They have no claws, no fangs, no natural weapons of any kind. Their ships are made of primitive metals. Their weapons are toys compared to ours." He crumpled the report and tossed it aside. "I will show the Empire how to deal with these creatures. Prepare the first armada. We will visit one of their colony worlds and teach them their proper place in the galaxy." His officers obeyed without question. Within 3 days, a fleet of 500 warships was assembled, the largest Imperial force gathered in over a century. At its head flew Admiral Torek's flagship, the Eternal Victory, a dreadnought so massive it could block out the sun of a small planet. Their target was a human colony world called New Helsinki. Intelligence reports indicated it was a farming world, home to about 2 million humans, the perfect place for a demonstration of Imperial power. The fleet arrived in the system, expecting to find easy prey. Instead, they found Commander Nathan Price waiting for them. Nathan was a tall man with a shaved head and a scar running down his left cheek, souvenir from the Mars uprising 20 years ago. He commanded the Terran battleship Relentless, and he had brought 11 other ships with him, 12 vessels against 500. "Commander," said his tactical officer, Megan Brooks, her eyes fixed on her console, "enemy fleet has dropped out of hyperspace. They're moving into attack formation. They have us completely surrounded." Nathan looked at the holographic display, showing the Imperial Armada closing in from all directions. Red dots everywhere, like a swarm of angry insects. His own ships were a tiny cluster of blue in the center. He smiled. "Good. Now they can't escape." The bridge crew exchanged glances. Some of them grinned. Others shook their heads in amusement. They had served with Commander Price long enough to know that he was not joking. "All ships, this is Commander Price," Nathan said into the fleet-wide channel. "I want you all to remember what we're fighting for today. Those are our people down on that planet. 2 million men, women, and children who are counting on us to protect them. The enemy thinks we're going to run. They think we're going to surrender. They think we're easy targets." He paused, letting his words sink in. "Let's show them how wrong they are. All ships, weapons free. Make them bleed." The battle began. Admiral Torek expected the human ships to flee or attempt to negotiate. Instead, they accelerated directly toward his fleet, their weapons already firing. It was suicide. It was madness. It was the most terrifying thing he had ever seen. The human ships were smaller and faster than anything in the Imperial Navy. They moved through space like dancing flames, never staying still long enough to present an easy target. Their weapons were not as powerful as Imperial guns, but they were accurate. Devastatingly accurate. 2 REK, watched in disbelief as his ships began to explode, one after another. The humans were not fighting like any enemy he had ever faced. They did not form neat battle lines or follow predictable patterns. They darted and weaved through his formations, striking at weak points, targeting engines and shield generators with surgical precision. And they were laughing. Torek could hear them on the intercepted communications channels. The human pilots were actually laughing as they fought. They shouted encouragement to each other, made crude jokes about their enemies, and cheered every time an Imperial vessel went down. It was as if they were enjoying themselves. "Impossible," Torek whispered, as another cluster of his ships vanished in balls of fire. "This is impossible." When the Imperial cruisers finally managed to close with the human vessels and launch boarding parties, things got even worse. The Vorath warriors, who made up the Imperial Marines, were bred for combat. They stood 8 feet tall, covered in natural armor, armed with claws and teeth that could tear through metal. They were not prepared for what they found aboard the human ships. The humans fought like demons. They used the narrow corridors of their vessels to their advantage, setting up ambushes and traps. They attacked in teams, coordinating with hand signals and coded words. They did not hesitate, did not retreat. They did not show any fear at all. One human marine, a woman barely 5.5 feet tall, killed 6 Vorath warriors by herself before finally going down. She used a knife, a primitive blade of metal, to gut 2 of them before the others could even react. The battle lasted for hours. By the end, the Relentless was badly damaged. Its port engine array was destroyed, half its weapons were offline, and its hull was covered in scorch marks and impact craters. 2 of the 12 human ships had been lost, their crews fighting to the last moment before their reactors overloaded. But Admiral Torek had lost 312 ships. When the surviving Imperial vessels finally retreated, Nathan Price ordered his fleet to let them go. He stood on his damaged bridge, surrounded by exhausted but triumphant crew members, and watched the enemy flee on the view screen. "Get me a channel to the enemy flagship," he ordered. A moment later, Admiral Torek's face appeared on the screen. The old Vorath looked like he had aged another century in the past few hours. His scales were pale, his eyes haunted. "Human," he said, his voice hoarse. "What are you?" Nathan looked at him steadily. "We're the species you should have left alone, Admiral. Remember that the next time your empire thinks about attacking our worlds. How did you do this? You were outnumbered 40 to 1. Nathan shrugged. "We evolved on a death world, Admiral. Everything on our planet tried to kill us from the moment we crawled out of the ocean. Predators, diseases, natural disasters, each other. We didn't become the dominant species by being gentle. We became dominant because we're the most stubborn, creative, and relentless fighters our planet ever produced." He leaned forward. "We don't fight fair. We don't fight by your rules. We fight to win. And we never, ever give up. Take that message back to your empire. Tell them what happened here today. Tell them that if they want war with humanity, they'll get it. But the cost will be higher than they can imagine." The channel closed, and Nathan turned to his crew. "Get damage control teams working on the engines. I want us moving within 6 hours. And someone get me some coffee? It's going to be a long night." Megan Brooks approached him with a data pad showing casualty reports. They had lost 217 crew members across the fleet. Each name was a friend, a colleague, someone with a family waiting back home. Nathan looked at the list in silence for a moment. "Make sure their families know they died heroes," he said quietly. "Every single one of them." "Yes, sir." As his crew moved around him, preparing the ship for the long journey home, Nathan allowed himself one moment of grief. Then he pushed it aside. There would be time to mourn later. Right now, he needed to be strong for his people. The Empire had learned its first lesson about humanity today. Nathan had a feeling it would not be the last. The Imperial Senate had not gathered in emergency session for over 3,000 years. The last time had been during the Great Rebellion, when 6 subject species had risen up simultaneously against Vorath rule. The Empire had crushed that uprising with overwhelming force, reducing entire planets to ash as a warning to any who might think of following their example. Now, The massive chamber on Varath Prime was filled once again with representatives from across the galaxy. Hundreds of species, each one conquered and absorbed into the Empire over the millennia. They sat in tiered rows, rising up toward a vaulted ceiling covered in murals depicting Vorath victories throughout history. At the center of it all, on a throne carved from a single piece of black crystal, sat High Empress Cythera. She was ancient, the oldest living Vorath. Her scales faded to silver with age, but her yellow eyes were still sharp, and her mind was still the keenest in the Empire. She had ruled for 800 years, guiding her people through wars and crises that would have destroyed lesser civilizations. Today, she faced something new, something that frightened her. Admiral Torek knelt before her throne, his head bowed in shame. He had returned with what remained of his fleet, less than 200 ships out of the 500 he had led. His report had sent shockwaves through the imperial court. 312 ships, the Empress said, her voice cold and clear. Against 12 enemy vessels? Explain this to me, Admiral. Majesty, I cannot explain it, Torek replied, his voice trembling. The humans fought like nothing we have ever seen. They showed no fear, no hesitation. Even when we boarded their ships, their warriors met us without retreat. They used every trick, every weapon, every advantage they could find. They fought as if death meant nothing to them. They are small creatures, soft, weak in body, but not in spirit, Majesty. I watched a human female barely larger than a child to our eyes kill 6 of our finest warriors with nothing but a metal blade. I heard them laughing on their communication channels as they destroyed our cruisers. They were enjoying the battle. Empress was silent for a long moment. Around the chamber, whispers spread like wildfire among the gathered representatives. Fear, uncertainty, doubt. These were emotions that the subject species were not supposed to feel toward anyone but their Vorath. Masters, High Commander Vareth, the Empress called out. Approach. Vareth stepped forward from his place among the military leadership. Unlike Torek, he did not kneel. He stood tall, meeting the Empress's gaze directly. He had been the first to encounter the humans, and in the weeks since, he had become the Empire's reluctant expert on the strange new species. You warned us about these creatures, the Empress said. Your report recommended caution. The Admiral ignored your advice. Now I wish to hear your full assessment. What are we dealing with? Vareth took a deep breath. Majesty, the humans are unlike any species we have ever encountered. Their physical bodies are indeed weak compared to ours. They have no natural weapons, no armor, no venom. They require constant sustenance and regular sleep to function. By our standards, they should be prey animals. And yet they defeated our fleet. Because their weakness is an illusion, Majesty. The humans did not survive on their home world through strength. They survived through adaptability, creativity, and sheer stubborn refusal to accept defeat. They are tool users beyond anything we have seen before. Every weakness they have, they compensate for with technology. Every challenge they face, they overcome through innovation. He pulled out a data crystal and activated it, projecting images into the air above the Senate floor. Their home world is what they call a death world. The gravity is stronger than our own. The atmosphere is corrosive compared to many inhabited planets. The temperature ranges from frozen wastelands to scorching deserts. The planet is home to millions of species that could kill them, from microscopic diseases to massive predators. Natural disasters reshape their continents regularly. The images showed Earth in all its dangerous beauty. Storms raging across oceans, earthquakes splitting the ground, volcanoes erupting with world-changing fury, predators hunting in packs, diseases spreading through populations like fire through dry grass. And yet they thrived, Vareth continued. They did not merely survive on this world. They conquered it. They hunted the predators to extinction. They built shelters against the disasters. They developed medicines to fight the diseases. They bent their entire planet to their will through nothing but determination and ingenuity. Impressive, the Empress admitted, but we have conquered species from difficult worlds before. Not like this one, Majesty. The humans have something we have never encountered before. They call it spite. Spite. It is difficult to translate, but I will try to explain. When a human faces impossible odds, when they know they cannot win, when every logical analysis says they should surrender or flee, something happens inside them. Instead of accepting defeat, they become more determined. They fight harder. They become willing to sacrifice everything, even their own lives, just to hurt their enemy as much as possible before they fall. Odoath paused, letting his words sink in. Admiral Torik's fleet outnumbered the humans 42-1. Any other species would have surrendered or attempted to negotiate. The humans attacked. Not because they thought they could win, but because they refused to accept any other option. They would rather die fighting than live knowing they gave up. The chamber fell completely silent. Even the Empress seemed taken aback. And their demands. She finally asked, "What do they want from us?" "That is perhaps the strangest part, Majesty. They say they want peace, trade, cultural exchange. They claim they have no interest in conquest or war. Their captain told me that they would rather have us as friends than as enemies. Then why do they terrify us so?" Vareth's answer was quiet, but it carried to every corner of the chamber, because they could conquer us if they wished. And they want us to know it. The debate that followed lasted for 3 days. Some senators called for total war, demanding that the Empire mobilize its full military might to crush the human threat before it could grow stronger. Others argued for immediate surrender, pointing out that if 12 ships could defeat 500, then the humans were simply too dangerous to fight in the end. A third faction emerged, led by a surprising voice. Ambassador Kethra of the Sylvan Collective, one of the oldest subject species in the Empire, rose to speak. "Honored Empress, fellow senators," she said, her melodic voice carrying through the chamber. "We have spent 3 days discussing how to defeat the humans, or how to submit to them. Perhaps we should consider a third option. Perhaps we should do what they asked and talk to them." Murmurs of surprise rippled through the assembly. "The humans have said they want peace," Kethra continued. "They have said they want to be friends. Maybe we should find out if they mean it. What do we have to lose by sending ambassadors? If they are lying, we will learn their true intentions. If they are telling the truth, we may gain the most valuable ally the Empire has ever known." The Empress considered this for a long moment. Then, slowly, she nodded. "Very well. We will send ambassadors to the humans. We will learn everything we can about them, and then we will decide how to proceed." She rose from her throne, and every being in the chamber fell silent. "Let it be known throughout the Empire, the humans are not to be attacked without direct orders from this throne. Anyone who violates this decree will be executed. We will not stumble blindly into a war we do not understand." As the senators filed out of the chamber, many of them were already composing messages to their home worlds. The galaxy was about to change forever, and everyone wanted to be prepared for what came next. 6 months had passed since the Battle of New Helsinki. In that time, the galaxy had changed more than it had in the previous 1,000 years. Human and Imperial diplomats had been meeting in secret, negotiating the terms of what would become the most important treaty in galactic history. The location they chose was a space station constructed in the neutral zone between their territories. It's built jointly by human and Vorath engineers. It was a symbol of what might be possible if 2 very different species chose cooperation over conflict. The station orbited a dead star, far from any inhabited world. Its design was a compromise between human and Imperial architecture. With curved corridors and angular chambers, warm lighting and cool shadows, it was neither fully human nor fully Vorath. It was something new. Admiral Lisa Monroe stood at the observation window, looking out at the gathered ships. On one side, a delegation of Imperial vessels, their dark hulls gleaming with ceremonial lights. On the other side, a small fleet of Terran ships, battered veterans of the recent conflict. They floated side by side, weapons powered down, shields lowered. Lisa had received her promotion 3 months ago, a recognition of her role in establishing first contact with the Empire. She still missed the command chair of the Starward Bound, but she understood why she was needed here. Today was too important for anyone less experienced. "Admiral," said her aide, a young lieutenant named Kevin Park, "the Imperial delegation has arrived at the station. The Empress is ready to meet with you." Lisa straightened her dress uniform and took a deep breath. "Let's make history, Kevin." The meeting chamber was a large circular room at the heart of the station. A round table stood at its center, surrounded by chairs designed to accommodate both human and Vorath physiology. Holographic displays covered the walls, showing the flags and symbols of both civilizations. High Empress Cythera entered from the opposite door, flanked by her guards and advisors. She was even more impressive in person than Lisa had expected. Despite her great age, she moved with fluid grace, her silver scales catching the light like polished metal. The two leaders approached the table and stopped, facing each other across its width. "Admiral Monroe," the Empress said, "we finally meet in person." "Your Majesty," Lisa replied with a respectful nod. "Thank you for agreeing to this summit. I know it took courage to come here yourself." "Courage." The Empress let out a dry laugh. "After what your species has shown us, I think I understand courage better than I did before. Your people have taught us much in these past months." They sat down, and the formal negotiations began. The terms had already been agreed upon in principle by their diplomats, but the final signing required the presence of the highest authorities on both sides. The treaty was called the Accord of Understanding. It established peace between the Terran Confederacy and the Vorath Dominion. It opened trade routes and diplomatic channels. It created exchange programs for scientists, artists, and scholars. And it included a mutual defense clause, promising that neither side would stand idle if the other was attacked by a third party. It was, in short, the foundation for a new era. As the signing ceremony proceeded, Lisa found herself studying the Empress. The ancient Vorath was watching her just as carefully. "Your species confuses me, Admiral," Cythera admitted during a pause in the proceedings. "You are warriors without equal, yet you seek peace. You could dominate us, yet you offer partnership. You defeated our fleet and asked for nothing but friendship." Lisa considered the question carefully before answering. "Your Majesty, humanity spent thousands of years making the mistake of trying to conquer each other. We built empires through fear and force, and every single one of them eventually crumbled. The nations that conquered the most were the ones that fell the hardest. We learned slowly and painfully that the strongest civilizations are not built on subjugation. They're built on cooperation." She gestured at the observation window, at the human and imperial ships floating peacefully together. "We could have kept fighting. We could have pushed our advantage and tried to conquer your empire. But what would that have gotten us? A galaxy full of resentful subjects, waiting for the chance to rebel. Endless wars to maintain control. That's not the future we want." "Then what do you want?" Lisa smiled. "We want friends, allies, trading partners. We want to explore the galaxy and learn its secrets. We want to meet new species and discover new worlds. We've spent so long fighting each other that we forgot how much more we could accomplish by working together." She leaned forward, her eyes meeting the Empress's. "Besides, friends are much more interesting than subjects. Subjects tell you what you want to hear. Friends tell you the truth, and from what I've seen of your empire, you could use some honest friends." The Empress was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, a smile crossed her ancient face. "You are a strange people, Admiral. Terrifying and generous in equal measure. I think perhaps the galaxy will never be the same now that you are part of it. I certainly hope not, Your Majesty." The signing was completed an hour later. Lisa and the Empress pressed their hands to the treaty document, encoding it with their genetic signatures. The holographic displays around the room lit up with the symbols of both civilizations, intertwined in a new design that represented their alliance. Outside, the crews of the gathered ships had emerged to watch through viewports and on external screens. As word of the successful signing spread, a cheer went up that was audible even across the vacuum of space. Human crew members waved at their Imperial counterparts. Slowly, hesitantly. Some of the aliens waved back. Lisa and the Empress walked together to the observation deck, looking out at the celebration. "There will be challenges ahead," Cythera said. My empire has never treated with another species as equals. Many of my people will resist this change, and many of my people still don't trust yours, Lisa agreed. Building real friendship will take time, generations maybe, but it starts here, today, with this moment. Do you truly believe we can overcome our differences? Lisa watched as a human shuttle pilot performed a complicated acrobatic maneuver, drawing cheers from both sides. A young Voroth officer on a nearby ship attempted to copy the move and nearly crashed into his own vessel, causing uproarious laughter from the humans and embarrassed hissing from the Imperial crews. Your Majesty, humans and Vorath are very different. We see the universe in different ways. We have different histories, different cultures, different bodies. But I think those differences are exactly why we need each other. You have 50,000 years of wisdom and experience. We have fresh eyes and new ideas. Together we might accomplish things neither of us could do alone. The Empress nodded slowly. Perhaps there is wisdom in your madness, Admiral Monroe. Please, call me Lisa. Very well, Lisa. The Empress extended a clawed hand. And you may call me Cythera. Lisa took her hand and shook it firmly, just as she had done with Vareth all those months ago. But this time, there was no threat behind the gesture. Only hope. As they stood together watching the celebration, a new saying was already beginning to spread through the galaxy, whispered in back rooms and official reports. In casual conversations and formal documents, never threaten a human, they said. They might just smile back. But if you're lucky enough to earn their friendship, there's nothing in the universe they won't do for you, it was. As all parties agreed, the beginning of something unprecedented. The galaxy would never be the same, and humanity. After all, its long years of struggle and suffering had finally found its place among the stars, not as conquerors, not as subjects, but as partners in the greatest adventure the universe had ever known. The stars were waiting, and humanity was ready.